He thought I didn't see him. The crowd, the music, the flashing cameras, he believed they would hide his betrayal. But I saw everything, the way his hand trembled when he held hers, the way he leaned in, and the way their lips met while the world watched. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply smiled, because I knew my silence would destroy him louder than any words ever could. The gala was everything we had worked for, the moment of pride I had dreamed about since the day we started our company from a tiny, windowless office. The hall was decorated with gold drapes and white roses, the chandeliers glimmering like captured stars. People clinked their glasses, laughing, praising the man I once believed was my forever. Arman Khan, the brilliant CEO, the charming husband, the man who once held my hand and promised, no matter how high I rise, you'll always rise with me. That night, I stood at the edge of the crowd, proud and calm, my silver gown catching the light every time I moved. I remember how he smiled at me across the room, a smile I thought belonged only to me. But then, everything changed with the entrance of one woman, Layla. She was the kind of woman who didn't have to try to be noticed. The kind who made people forget what they were saying mid-sentence. Her laughter rang through the hall like a melody designed to draw attention. She was dressed in crimson, bold, confident, dangerous. I'd seen her before, of course. The new PR manager. The one everyone whispered about. The one who stayed late at work with Arman. The one whose lipstick I once found faintly smudged on his shirt collar, a stain he explained away as a mistake during a meeting. I had believed him, because that's what love does, it blinds you with hope even when the truth is screaming at you. Arman moved through the crowd like he was born for the spotlight. His speech was smooth, his charm effortless. People adored him, but I watched closely. I noticed the small things others missed, the way his eyes flicked to the corner where Layla stood, the secret smiles they shared, the nervous energy between them. My heart began to beat faster, a quiet dread curling inside my chest. Then it happened. In the middle of applause, when everyone's eyes were on him, he walked toward her. Slowly, casually, like he was drawn by gravity. The crowd parted just slightly, and for a fleeting moment, it felt like time froze. His hand brushed hers, a silent, electric connection. My throat went dry. Then, without hesitation, he leaned in and kissed her. Right there, in front of everyone. The sound in the room shifted. Gasps, whispers, cameras clicking, disbelief spreading like wildfire. I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. My fingers tightened around the champagne glass until I thought it might shatter. Every heartbeat echoed in my ears like thunder. People turned to look at me, waiting, expecting drama, anger, maybe tears. But I stood still, my face expressionless, my eyes locked on the man who just ended everything we built with one reckless act. Inside, my heart burned, but my body refused to move. I wouldn't give them the show they wanted. Then he saw me. For a brief second, our eyes met across the room. His face paled, his confident smirk fading into panic. He pulled back from Layla instantly, as if realizing too late what he'd done. But it didn't matter anymore. The damage was done. My silence was louder than his mistake. I raised my glass to him, just slightly, a cold, ironic toast to the end of us. And then, I walked away. Every step I took out of that hall felt heavier than the last, but strangely liberating. The woman who entered that night as his proud wife was not the same woman who left. By the time the cold night air hit my face, I had made a decision. I would not let anger guide me. I would not scream or beg. I would destroy him with something far more powerful than rage, silence and strategy. When I reached home, I didn't cry. I sat in the living room, staring at the framed photos of us, vacations, anniversaries, fake smiles. I realized then that while I had been loving him with my whole heart, he had been performing love like it was part of his success story. He had used me, my skills, my trust, my loyalty, to build his empire. And now, he thought he could discard me publicly without consequence. He forgot one thing. I was the foundation beneath his empire. The contracts, the patents, the legal ownership of half the company, all bore my signature. The next morning, I walked into the office with calmness that unnerved everyone. People stared, whispering as I passed. The tabloids had already picked up the photos. I was the trending headline, CEO caught kissing employee at company gala while wife watches. A scandal that should have broken me. But instead, it gave me the perfect stage to end his reign quietly. I greeted everyone with a polite smile, pretending not to notice the pitiful looks or the forced sympathy. Then, I went straight to my office, my sanctuary. The very office where Armin and I once spent nights planning our dreams, mapping out the future. Now, I was there to plan his downfall. Our legal advisor, Mr. Asif, looked uneasy when I called him in. "Ma'am, I saw the news," he said softly. "Are you, all right?" I smiled faintly. "Perfectly, but I need to review all our ownership documents, immediately." He blinked, confused, but complied. And as I scanned through the files, I felt something inside me harden. My name was everywhere, on the papers that gave him power, the documents that shielded him from accountability, the assets he boasted about. He had everything because I believed in him. And now, I would take it back, piece by piece, word by word, without a single scream. That night, as he and Layla celebrated at the same bar where he once promised me forever, I sent an email. One click, and it all began. Attached were documents, proof of financial misconduct, and signed statements from employees he had manipulated. The recipients, the board, the investors, the media. I watched the sent icon flash green, then closed my laptop. The house was quiet, but inside me, there was a storm, not of pain, but of power. I looked out the window at the city lights and whispered to myself, "You wanted to embarrass me in front of the world, Armin. Now watch how silence ruins you in return." As I went to bed that night, I knew tomorrow the world would start to crumble around him. And for the first time in months, I slept peacefully, not as his wife, but as the woman he never saw coming. My silence had just begun its work. They say silence can't break a man. But when I chose not to speak, not to defend, not to argue, not to warn, his world collapsed piece by piece, until even his shadow refused to stand beside him. He kissed another woman in public thinking it made him powerful. But it was my silence that made me unforgettable. Morning broke differently that day. For the first time in years, my phone wasn't filled with his messages. Instead, there were notifications, headlines, and chaos. My name was trending again, but this time, not as the humiliated wife. The media was on fire. CEO Armin Khan accused of fraud and financial misconduct, wife and co-founder Zara files evidence. I sipped my coffee slowly, watching his empire burn across every news channel. It wasn't satisfaction I felt, it was closure. The kind that comes when you've finally stopped explaining your worth to people who never deserved you. The company I once helped him build, block by block, dream by dream, now stood on the edge of destruction. The board members had called an emergency meeting. Investors demanded answers. Clients froze projects. Everything he thought was unshakable began to crumble beneath his pride. By noon, my phone buzzed. It was him. "Zara, please, pick up. We need to talk." I didn't. He tried again. Dozens of calls. Dozens of messages. "You've misunderstood everything. You've gone too far. Let's fix this, please." But what he didn't understand was that silence is not absence, it's control. And I wasn't about to surrender mine. By the time the board meeting began, Armin looked nothing like the confident man he once was. His suit was perfect, his voice steady, but his eyes gave him away, desperate, hollow, afraid. I sat across from him, calm, collected, the woman he thought would never stand up for herself. "Zara," one of the directors began, "your email raised serious concerns. We've reviewed the documents, and frankly, the evidence speaks for itself. Armin, do you have anything to say?" He stammered. "This is a misunderstanding. Zara's upset, she's just emotional." "Emotional," I said finally, breaking my silence for the first time in 2 days. My voice was steady, almost too calm. "No, Armin, I'm precise. You built an empire using my work, my name, and my trust. You broke our marriage in public. Now you're watching the consequences of your choices, quietly, just as I did." The room went silent. The directors exchanged glances. He opened his mouth to speak, but I continued, "I'm filing for full control of my shares. And as of today, I'll be taking over the CEO role. You may remain on the board until further notice, if the board still wants you there." He looked at me like I'd spoken a language he'd never heard before. "You can't do this, Zara. You can't just erase me." I met his eyes. "You already did that when you kissed her." That was the end of it. The vote was unanimous. He was out. When I left the building, reporters swarmed the entrance. Cameras flashed. Microphones stretched toward me. Mrs. Khan, how do you feel about your husband's scandal? Is it true you exposed him? Are you divorcing him? I stopped just long enough to say, truth doesn't need revenge. It just needs to be seen. Then I walked away. No tears, no bitterness, just quiet grace. That night, he came to my house. I knew he would. He always came back when things fell apart. He looked exhausted, eyes sunken, suit disheveled, a broken man trying to find his reflection in the ruins he'd built. Zara, please, he whispered when I opened the door. I've lost everything. You've destroyed me. I looked at him, calm as ever. No, Armin, you destroyed yourself. I just stopped protecting you from the truth. He stepped closer, eyes glistening. I made a mistake. I was stupid. Layla meant nothing. Stop, I said quietly. Don't insult me with lies. You kissed her because you thought I'd stay quiet forever. You thought I was weak. But silence isn't weakness, Armin. It's patience, and I was patient long enough to let you show who you really are. His voice cracked. You were my everything, Zara. Then you should have treated me like it. He fell to his knees, sobbing, begging me to forgive him. But there was nothing left to forgive. The woman who once loved him had vanished the moment he betrayed her dignity. I had no hatred left, only clarity. I handed him an envelope, the divorce papers. Sign them when you're ready, I said softly. And don't call me again. There's nothing left between us except signatures. He looked up, eyes red and swollen. You'll regret this. I smiled faintly. No, Armin, you will. The next morning, the official statement was released. Zara Khan appointed as new CEO of K&Z Enterprises. The photo that accompanied it showed me standing behind the same podium where he once boasted about his achievements. This time, the applause wasn't for him, it was for me. I stood before the cameras, shoulders straight, voice firm. I built this company with integrity and heart. And today, I take it forward without deceit. The room erupted in applause. But behind my calm expression, I felt something deeper, peace. Weeks passed. The scandal faded, replaced by new headlines, new distractions. But Armin's name never recovered. Investors blacklisted him. Partners withdrew offers. Even Layla vanished. Rumor had it she left the country when the money dried up. One evening, I saw him on the street by chance, unshaven, thinner, carrying a briefcase like it weighed the world. Our eyes met for a fleeting second, and I saw the realization in his, that he had lost not just his company, not just his wealth, but the one person who ever truly believed in him. He tried to smile, but it faltered. I nodded once, a silent goodbye, and walked away. And just like that, he disappeared from my life forever. Months later, as I stood in the boardroom overlooking the city, a reporter asked me, "What's your secret, Ms. Khan? How did you stay so composed through everything?" I smiled softly, because I learned something powerful. Silence is not empty, it's full of answers. You just have to wait long enough for the world to hear them. They applauded, but I didn't say more. Some victories don't need words. That night, when I reached home, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat by the window. The city lights shimmered, and for the first time, I felt whole, not because I had won against him, but because I had won back myself. My silence had taken everything he loved, but it had also given me something far greater, peace, strength, and freedom. Because sometimes, the loudest revenge is no revenge at all. Just silence, and success.